Welcome everybody. On behalf of Library Makers, I would like to welcome you to the Storytime Tinkering Book Club kickoff. My name is Karen Wynn, and I'm a librarian from the San Diego Public Library, and I am an ambassador for Library Makers. Library Makers is a community that connects and supports library staff from all over the country, and libraries big and small who are all at different points in their maker journey. Whether you are just getting started or you have been making for many years, we invite you to ask questions and to share your experiences on our librarymakers.org platform. And now I'd like to introduce the really amazing team over at the Tinkering Studio and R&D laboratory for creative learning at the Exploratorium, a museum of science, art, and human perception located in San Francisco, California. We have with us today Karen Wilkinson, Steph Muscat, and Michael Wong, who will share their work on book-based learning and invite us all to do some creative tinkering today. All right, I'll hand it over to you all. I'm going to go ahead and stop my share.
Thanks so much, Karen. And we're going to go ahead and share some slides to get started, but then we'll get into some making and tinkering together. So I'm going to go ahead and share screen. Can you all see that okay?
Perfect.
Great. So we're really excited to try out this Storytime Tinkering Book Club with you. But first,
hi everyone, I'm Michael. I work at the Tinkering Studio at the Exploratorium. I'm very excited to be here. I thought we'd start off by introducing a little bit of context around who we are and where we work. As Karen just mentioned, we are from a place called the Exploratorium, which is physically located in San Francisco. And I hope that many of you will come and visit us at some point. We are a museum of science, art, and human perception. And we really look at the museum as a collection of hands-on ways to engage with phenomena related to science and perception. But we also see the museum as like a living learning laboratory where we can explore and learn from our participants and with them. So within the museum, we work in a place called the Tinkering Studio, which is a physical space where we can play around with a whole range of different ideas. In this image here, you can see some facilitated experiences and as well as some unfacilitated, more exploratory experiences. We really focus on hands-on ways to explore different types of phenomena. And the reason that this is important to us is because of this. So tinkering to us is a pedagogical approach to learning. So it's really, first and foremost, a way of creating knowledge and engaging with knowledge for learners. And we define tinkering as this playful, hands-on learning with phenomena, with things that can be seen and touched and experienced. Also, it's really important to share that we really deeply believe that tinkering is for everyone. And everyone has the ability to start tinkering with what they already know. And tinkering really relies on bringing those personal connections and personal knowledge to an experience and building on top of that. So I just wanted to frame a little bit about who we are and how we approach learning. I want to then pass it on to Karen Wilkinson.
Hi, everybody. Yeah, I'm the other Karen on the call. The one thing that I would really want to emphasize is we also have really developed a love for books. More recently, I guess, we did a project focused on early childhood, P3, and preschool primarily, looking at ways of bringing tinkering and books and materials together for early learners. So worked a lot in classrooms with educators, but also spent a lot of time with young children. And I think the approach that we're taking with a recent project with the Media Lab at MIT involving OctoStudio has pushed us even a little bit further. So we're really interested in thinking about literacies in a very expansive way. So basic literacies like reading and language, materials literacies like tinkering with those hands-on materials and phenomena that Michael described, and then computational tinkering. So we think what we're going to share with you today is a way to combine all of those three, and maybe start where you might feel comfortable and then venture into the other two is the plan, that you can kind of do it from materials, from story and a book, or from Octa Studio.
And here's just a slide that shows some of the activities that we've done with younger learners, often tied to books. But what I wanted to do is share, oh, so first of all, I'm Steph. I work with Michael and Karen at the Tinkering Studio. We're really excited that you've joined us today because this is an experiment and we are really relying on you and your expertise in your spaces and with your communities to try to just see what happens when we tinker with different ideas and books together. So the format for this Storytime Tinkering Book Club is that today is the first session in the kickoff event. So welcome and thank you. And after this book club session 1, well, so during the session, we'll introduce a book and then some ideas that we've found to be really interesting so far in terms of how to tinker with the book and some physical materials and digital technologies. But this is just the beginning. And so our hope is that in between this session and the next session, that you will take these ideas and make them your own and try them out with the people that you work with. So it's different in terms of a book club. Normally you're like, book clubs I've been part of. You read a chapter book, sometimes you don't read the whole chapter book, and then you come back together and you discuss it. Here, our ask of you is really read a short book. These are children's books. And then the bulk of the time is, what do you do with it? How are you using it as a point of inspiration? So we'll have this book club session 1. We'll ask you to do some tinkering in between to share on the Library Makers platform what you're trying out so that we can all be sharing and learning from each other. We'll have another session. We'll come back together and do more sharing. And then we'll have this third session. After that, we'll see what happens. If we love this idea, maybe we keep going, but we wanted to see as a starting point, let's try these 3 sessions. I'm realizing I should have put the dates on the slide, but we'll have these 3 sessions and then we will see what comes out of it. So with that.
We wanted to introduce you to a book that we really love tinkering with. We find it to be a really rich starting point. And it's something that we want to introduce to you today. And then hopefully we'll have a bit of time to also play around with different ways that we can explore this particular narrative. So this is a book called Don't Push the Button by Bill Cotter. And I hope some of you might have seen it. And I'm excited if none of you have, and we can introduce you to it. Before we jump into an activity together, I wanted to just give us a brief overview of the narrative to use as a starting point. Now, if you have the book in your space, you're welcome to grab it and flip through it. But if you don't, I'm just going to run you through the narrative. So it starts off with a very simple concept, introducing you to this lovely character called Larry. And Larry just has one rule, which is don't push the button. Of course, it's very tempting to push the button. And as we go through the book, we realize that maybe it would be kind of nice to press the button. So what would happen if we were to just break Larry's one rule and give that button a little press? Something bad happens. Larry's gone yellow. The only way to fix this is to press it again. And more chaos ensues. So Larry's got dots. There's more Larrys. It's a nightmare. Let's quickly shake the book and see what can happen. So that's the premise of the book. It's a delightful way to engage with pushing, with shaking, and seeing what effects that can cause.
So we've gotten really interested in this idea of using books as starting points for tinkering, but we're not just using any books. We're trying to choose books that have some sort of connection to physical phenomena that either show, when you look at them as a collection, show diverse protagonists, are written by authors and illustrators from different backgrounds with different voices. Like, we're trying to kind of create this set of books and collect them that are really a strong collection to support tinkering investigations. And so I'm so happy because already in the chat, I could tell you all know books. And so I think you'll also be able to add to our collection. But based on this idea of don't push the button, we were thinking, okay, so as a launching point for tinkering investigations, where could this go? Maybe you could look at the different patterns on Larry and think about light and shadow explorations. Maybe you can think about pressing a button and it becomes about inputs and outputs and circuits. Maybe you're looking at creative coding and some of the different things that you can do when you have a button pressed. So for today, we're going to share a few examples along two of these directions, but we're really hoping for you all to just keep an open mind and connect this to work that you're interested in or things that you're already doing, or try something new. Oops. So first, we wanted to show a few examples of creative coding extensions for Don't Push the Button. So Mike,
yeah, this is an example that I made that really follows the narrative that we just introduced you to. And I just built it on my phone, and it introduces you again to this lovely character called Larry. And there's this very tempting button there. And so what happens when you're asked not to press the button? You press the button and Larry turns yellow. And then you're able to push it again, more things change, and we're able to leverage the fun little shake function that's embedded in this.
And I should ask too, who's familiar with Octo Studio?
Good question.
Okay, I see a few hands and I see a few non-hands. So Octo Studio is an app that today we are going to be introducing you to and experimenting a little bit with. And so that example that Michael just shared is using this creative coding platform that was developed by the lifelong kindergarten team at MIT. And it's really getting you into looking playfully at code as a material. So Michael shared that example, and then I was also interested in using this creative coding platform with some physical materials for an example. Can you hear the audio?
Yes.
Okay, so I wanted to transform my whole phone into a button. So I made this red backdrop on the coding platform.
Don't push the button.
So this was just another example of, in a very low floor way, using cardboard, something really familiar, with a technology that it might be less familiar, to start experimenting with bringing the book to life. Oh, this always gets me with Google Slides. Okay.
So we've been sharing this with a few of our friends and colleagues in the museum, and one of our colleagues, Sebastian, read the book, saw these examples, and then decided to kind of create this version, his own take on Don't Push the Button, using these fun like silicon ice molds or baking molds. So he just looked around the room, saw something was red, and tried to turn it into a button. And what I love is that it kind of riffs on the idea that Steph just showed of a physical, creating a cardboard overlay and using physical materials to also explore this idea of don't push the button. And if we play the video, we'll see that it's not necessarily narratively connected to don't push the button, but conceptually connected. So as he's pushing on his red silicon button, he's getting the scene to change. He's getting things to kind of appear and disappear using this Octo Studio coding platform.
So we showed you a few examples that involve creative coding. Now we want to show you a few examples that are more about physical circuits and buttons.
So this is an experiment for us within the Tinkering Studio. We have an activity called Circuit Blocks that allows people to engage with circuits and discover how things work using electronics. And one thing that we've also been really interested in is how do we make these more accessible to more people? And one of the things that we've been looking at is using cardboard as the core material for exploring circuits, as well as conductive fabric tape, which is essentially just a tape that conducts electricity. And it kind of came at a perfect time as we were looking at this book to start investigating different types of buttons. And so as we look at this example, we'll see that there is a connection to a big red/orange button inspired by Larry's Don't Push This Button button. And so that's quite a simple circuit that's just a battery, LED, and a button. But that homemade button, being able to kind of create my own version was really, really fun for me, and I found that really engaging. And so what I ended up doing was actually investigating a couple of different ways to explore this don't push the button kind of prompt by creating a few different types of buttons. So starting with the one on the left, I looked at what's a different way of engaging with the button. That's a slider switch instead of being like a push switch. And then this one on the right is a bit more complicated, but I really was interested in a dial switch. How can I maybe control two things just by rotating a knob essentially? And all of these use pretty basic materials, pretty inexpensive materials. And I personally love the use of like a Gatorade bottle cap or a red bottle cap to draw that light connection back to don't push the button. But then after that, I can explore however I want. And so I've been sharing this, or we've been sharing this internally with the team, and a couple of our other colleagues have been really interested in this. This is an example by Luigi, and feel free to hit start, Steph, because this is a semi-long video. What Luigi was really interested in was kind of riffing on that idea of the push button by making these button tops, I guess, that were interchangeable. So his base button just stays the same, and then he's got these Velcro pieces that allow everyone to kind of create their own buttons thematically connected to whatever it is that they find personally meaningful. And then finally, another colleague of ours, Ryoko, again saw the button and, similar to Sebastian, looked around the room and just saw what is around me that could become a fun button, and cut this ping pong ball in half and use that as the foundation to start to explore this idea of what goes into a button, what is a button, and what are fun ways to engage with it.
So we wanted to also ask Karen from San Diego, have you been tinkering with Don't Push the Button at all?
Yeah, actually, I was when I was after I had read it and I was thinking about buttons, my mind went to switches and circuits as well, like Michael. So I went in the direction of paper circuits, so kind of more low tech. So I was kind of thinking of I made like an open circuit with conductive tape, an LED and a coin battery, and just made like, you know, a makeshift button here with conductive tape that would close the circuit. So then it would activate the robot. And so that was my first thought with buttons. So buttons and switches. And in the book, when you press the button, like different things happen. So I wanted to kind of play into that as well. So I asked my colleague to also create an open circuit as well. So she created, her artwork was like this flower with LEDs, with an LED open circuit with her own makeshift button as well. So that one kind of lights up. Oh, perfect. You can see the light. So with her button, it has the little conductive tape in the back as well. So her button could essentially close my open circuit as well. So if I was doing this with like a group of students, probably at the end, we would have like a showcase of open circuits with everyone's makeshift buttons and kind of like see what everyone's button will do with everyone else's open circuits. So that's kind of what I was tinkering with.
I really love the way you're thinking about collaborative button making and how things start fitting together. I think that's a really exciting direction. So thank you for sharing that. And so now we have some time to mess around together. So our hope is that up until, I know everyone's on different time zones, but up until the 45-minute mark or 15 minutes to the hour, we'll have a chance to start tinkering with Octa Studio, with different physical materials, staying in this world of don't push the button and using it as a point of inspiration. And also knowing that in 20-25 minutes, we're not going to finish projects today. The hope is just to start kicking off ideas and sharing them with each other so that in between sessions, we can see when we actually have time to try things out, what comes up. So with that, we're going to move into breakout rooms just because it means we'll have a little bit of an easier time actually talking to each other. And I think, Michael, are you ready to?
So you're going to move us. Actually, Deborah's asking a question out of curiosity, wanting to know what the next book is going to be so they could play around with the new book. Do you want to sort of say what we're thinking about in terms of book titles?
Yeah, well, first I'll say our hope is that you'll start playing around with Don't Push the Button starting today until the next session so that it'll have its own run. In terms of other book titles coming up, so there are some books that have to do with windows and looking into and out of spaces that are coming up. There are some books around light and shadow that are coming up. So we will start sharing those with you once we finalize the set. But I'm very happy that you're eager to start tinkering with these books.
And we were kind of hoping, you know, we want to check out the suggestions that people were adding in the chat too. We're really open to looking at the range of possible books. But yes, Press Here is another great button related book too.
Yeah, but thanks for mentioning that. Like we're going to defer to your expertise on a lot of this. So also if things start coming up that we're all excited about, we're willing to go in some different directions even than what we have planned. So with that, let's do a little bit of tinkering and making, and then we'll come back together.
Love it. Okay, I'm going to open a couple of breakout rooms that some people have been assigned to. If you're not assigned to a room, then you can hang out in this main room with Steph. And if anyone needs anything, just chuck it in the chat or dip back into the main room. And we will see you in a second.
Thanks, Michael.
Of course.
Give everybody a minute to get settled. And I know, so people might be joining from different spaces. If you're in a situation where you can unmute, show video, this is a very casual space. And so that would be lovely. I totally understand if that's not possible though. So, but just wanted to extend the invitation. And I'm getting over a cold. So also I'm sorry if I mute to cough every so often. Okay, it seems like maybe people have settled. Great. Cool. Welcome, everybody. Thanks for joining today. To start, I would just love to hear if this is bringing up any ideas for you, or if you're excited to get started with ideas around Don't Push the Button, or if other books immediately spring to mind.
Yeah, I love this. We do a mini maker story time once a week for our littles. Right now they're younger than what we had anticipated. We're hoping the summer we'll get some older, but we'd do a lot of this. We'd take a story and then jump off and what can we help them make? And so I haven't done one with Don't Press the Button yet. So I'm thinking more just depending on the age group, maybe more low tech of someone press a button and everybody take turns of what happens to them. Not everything has to be tech, or they could do puppets, they could do other things, and we could record it and have the tech piece. But circuits is a great natural bridge too.
Yeah, I love the way you're thinking about that and bringing in different age groups and kind of tailoring the activity so that it actually is inviting. Are there ideas that are coming up for anyone else?
Well, just I'm kind of coming from the opposite direction of working on STEM programming for the summer, and I hadn't really thought about looking for stories to tie into our programs, but now I'm thinking about, you know, maybe we do a picture book component with some of the activities that I've already got planned, and yeah, I like that kind of tie-in.
Welcome. If you just joined, we just did some intro about this idea of a book club, and now we're going to get into tinkering together for those who can. And I know not everybody can, but if you're interested in it, we're thinking today it would be a good chance to tinker with Octa Studio, just because that might not be as familiar. So I'm going to share my screen. This is the QR code that you can use to download Octa Studio. I'll leave that up for a minute. And Octa Studio it's a block-based coding platform. Has anyone worked with block-based coding in the past? Some, yeah.
Like Scratch, kind of.
Yeah, like
Pretty
Scratch.
similar.
So the group who developed this program is actually the same group who developed Scratch. And so if you're familiar with Scratch, some things will seem familiar, some things will be different. But what I really like about the program is it takes advantage of some of the phone's sensors. And so you can like shaking the phone, you can make something happen. Tilting the phone, you can make something happen. You can use the flashlight. It feels like you can mess around with physical materials in a little bit of a different way. I'm going to leave it up for one more minute. Does anyone else need the download link still? Okay. Great. So to get started, you can open up a new project. I'm going to open this too. Hello. It's nice to see familiar.
Good to see you. Yeah. Hi, everybody.
Thanks for joining in. So we're just tinkering a little bit with Octa Studio, inspired by this book, Don't Push the Button. I'm gonna share in the chat a link to all of the different spreads that we showed from the book in case you want to try to bring some into your project right now. Let me pull this up. Here. Okay. So a good place to start, you'll see this screen and you'll be prompted to create a new project. And so you can go ahead and create a new project, and then you're asked, do you want to choose a sprite or choose a backdrop? One fun thing with Octa Studio is that you can take photos and bring them into your phone. So I'm going to go ahead and choose a sprite. And then I have the book in front of me, but you now have access to those slides. I'm going to pick a page in the book. And maybe I'm going to try to bring in the button. So I'm going to use the camera option to take a picture. And it means that I now have a button in my project. But that's just what I'm going to start with. I want to make sure, how's it going getting set up with Octa Studio? And do you have ideas for what you want to try out in the next 15 minutes?
Kind of. I'm trying to formulate an idea, but I really do like, I think Michelle had brought up having the students or the kids bring in like what they want the button to do. So kind of maybe creating my own or our own Don't Push the Button book, kind of.
Oh, that's nice.
Mm-hmm.
Like collecting that set of what happens when a button is pushed.
Yeah, so I really like the idea again of like collecting the ideas from everybody.
Like, Michelle, are you all set up with Octa Studio? How's it going? I know it can be challenging sometimes to get started.
Just getting started. I had a circle on my desk, so I took a picture of it to be my button. Just
Great.
starting to play with it.
And for those of you who can't tinker with us because you're in a setting where it doesn't work out, you also feel free to either chime in just by unmuting or write in the chat if you just have ideas for how you might pick up the Don't Push the Button project. I'd be curious to hear too, but no pressure. We're also going to be posting things on the Library Makers platform, so there are going to be lots of ways to engage with this. Rebecca, how's it going for you so far?
Good. Excuse me. I'm just yeah. Just playing around, but I made a pig jump, so that's good.
Oh, yay. Yeah, I made my sprite jump too. So fun.
This is helpful too to think about like what are the ways to quickly get into working with Octostudio, and like jump maybe is like getting something to jump feels like a great starting point. Yeah, I don't know if you saw the tap. There's an on tap option, so you could have like a tap and then a jump. Jonathan, did you get into Octostudio okay?
Yeah. Very scratch-like,
Very-
but like simplified.
Yeah.
The phone specific features look particularly fun. Yeah, like tilt.
Yeah, the phone specific features I find really fun. The fact that yeah, you can tilt and shake, and even just the tap. Like to me, there's something a little magical about the fact that you can start getting something to interact. Yeah. Maybe I'll put some music on so we can just chill and work on stuff with a little background music. I just realized I'm not logged into Spotify, so I can't play background music. It can also be really fun to record sounds. So there's the opportunity to like record your own sounds, which I know when we've done this with kids sometimes has been a big draw. And feel free to like tilt your screen down too. I know sometimes it can be nice to be working in like so people can see what you're working on. I might get some cardboard even. One thing I'm playing with too is how different materials interact with the screen. So right now I have a piece of paper on my screen and I can tap through the piece of paper. So there can be like a little bit of a digital reveal. I don't know how well that's coming through. But so I have a little sprite behind this piece of paper, but I'm able to tap even through it.
Oh, that's really neat.
So it makes me wonder what other materials you could like incorporate into your project too. I like it when digital and physical materials start to like feel like you have fluency with both. Knowing that this was not enough time to do anything, but wanting to hear a little bit about what directions might be intriguing within the next 5 minutes or so. I'd love to just hear like, okay, what did you try? What was surprising or challenging, and what maybe are you interested in trying out before the next book club meeting?
So I just played around. I've got a little bee getting jumping and it gets big, and I got a text box. Whoa, I'm huge. Tap again. It gets teeny, 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 teeny. So I've got like the text messages coming, what he's saying. So I could definitely see the kids having fun with that. Just don't know what tech we have available in our library district to do it with. That's going to be the main thing. I know we have some iPads. We don't have enough small devices. They could do it on, a lot of them come in, or parents come in with their own, but I can't guarantee that. So that may be my biggest hang up right now, is exploring that.
Yeah, thanks for sharing that. It's a good point.
Yeah, Michelle, I've got the same issue that we've got laptops and yeah, we don't have iPads for programming, so this particular app probably wouldn't work real well, but I did, oops, a little pig that jumps and moves when you tap the screen. And then when it hits the cow, it gets smaller. So that was fun.
Yeah, it's really fun to see. Yeah, I wonder, yeah, Michelle too, could you try to show us your project itself? I know you described it. There's something delightful about like actually seeing the pig jump. Oh, and right now you're muted. I don't know if you're trying.
So I'm still in this, let me change my background. It's all blurry. Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Yeah, we can
Okay.
hear you.
So how do I get out of the programming to see it all?
Yeah, so in the upper right-hand corner, there's like a look at everything big button.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So here he is.
Aw.
Let's see, tap it. Should go. He gets, so you can see where he's like, oh, I got really big. It went really fast. Let's see if I can loop it back. Start over.
I love the way you're using the change size.
Yeah,
Like-
so, but yeah, you can see it got really, I just pressed it too many times. Let's see. Yeah, there he is. And then if I tap it once, he should jump. Maybe, yeah. Oh, okay, so we just got really big and then really little. So it's my programming, see. But it had the text box. Oh, I'm too big, tap again.
That's great. I really love seeing the beginnings of the projects. Karen, what were you working on today?
Yeah, just trying to familiarize myself with the app. So, yeah, just playing around with like the different what the tapping can do. This is my baby Yoda that I crocheted.
Aww.
And so, you know, he loves food. So and his favorite food is frogs. So it's him eating the frog. If I had more time, I probably would have some more frogs like being eaten by the baby Yoda. But yeah, just playing around with the programming right now. But yeah, it was really fun. It felt intuitive.
I really love that you're bringing in like a personally meaningful thing, like Baby Yoda that you've made.
Yeah,
Um,
but I really want to explore what you were talking about, like combining the physical and digital. I think that was really cool what you showed us with a little sprite coming out behind your paper.
That's always a direction I'm interested in, like how to tinker with technology in ways that feel really fluid, where you're like, you're just using coding as a tool because you want to express your idea, and that's the overall goal. Just out of curiosity too, could you see like reading the book, Don't Push the Button, and then doing some sort of hands-on exploration? Is that something that fits into your spaces? I see Rebecca nodding.
Yeah, and I'm thinking that, you know, if I can't get a hold of these types, something like this, you could do stop motion because we've got that easily accessible. So, and you could just have the button and different things change. So again, that bringing that physical and digital together at the same time.
Yeah, and definitely the cardboard circuits that Michael showed us earlier would be very easy to put together.
Yeah, so well, I think we're going to be coming back together as a big group in a moment, but just so you know, like we'll be active on the Library Makers platform. And so if you're trying out the cardboard circuits and you wanted to see close-up pictures of things, or just ask us, because we're very happy to support this however we can, and really interested in the directions that are like, truly meaningful to you and the people that you work with. Do you have any questions before everybody starts coming back into the room? I'm going to go ahead and close all the rooms so that people come back. Okay. Yeah, thank you for trying out Octa Studio today too. It was a new program. We're still learning also how best to invite people into tinkering with it in different ways. Welcome back. Sorry if you were mid-conversation. I think we have like 20 more seconds of people leaving rooms and coming back together. Hey everyone. I like Seth, not an iPhone, as your name.
Yeah, I was iPhone 5 before this.
Okay, awesome. I hope everyone had a good 25-ish minutes in there. Sorry, I lost track of time and didn't close the breakout rooms very abruptly, but it was really fun to be in my room and be chatting around. We would love to just hear a few reflections or initial thoughts or things you're excited about. So I might just pass it to Karen and see how it went in your room and if there's anything that you want to highlight.
Yeah, well, I think we talked about a few different things. Some branches don't have iPads, so the idea of grants to get the tech was one. I think we had a range of projects. Stardew Valley chicken jumped into the sky. Images of a crosswalk, kind of pushing a button, thinking about that was something Pam worked on. And Jen had a strawberry, taking a chomp out of it. So a range of seeing how tap could activate things like that. But we also talked about this is really just the beginning of trying OctoStudio and what other ways we could be thinking about buttons at different branches.
Amazing.
Mm.
What about you, Steph? What was coming up in your room?
There's some similar questions around the technology. So with using OctoStudio, the idea that it could be really exciting because maybe adults coming into the space would have their own devices, but not being able to like reliably know that people would have access because of not all branches having mobile devices. But then, yeah, I really appreciated seeing how Michelle, Rebecca, and Karen in my room were bringing both 2D and 3D things into OctoStudio. So taking pictures of like flat things and how those come in. Karen has like a 3D crocheted baby Yoda that made its appearance in the OctoStudio project. And just that idea of moving between like things around you in your space and bringing them into projects was something that really stood out. But then taking a step back too, and just the idea of like, okay, if you have this book, what are you going to do next? And maybe it's Rebecca was bringing up like physical circuits, and the cardboard circuit blocks felt like a good next step and a next direction there. So I'm excited because to me, it felt like this as a starting point that you all get to interpret and try out in your own spaces. I think we're going to learn a lot from that process too.
Yeah, I think I'm very excited to see how everyone takes this up because I think it's going to inform all of us so much. In my room, we had a really lovely time, really good conversations. Some interesting things coming up around. I mean, we collectively actually coded something together, which I think is a really interesting way. It also came up as a question about if you're doing this with younger learners, how do you introduce them to code? And this idea of maybe one person sourcing the ideas from a room and then creating that can be a really cool way of showing the power of coding and that personal expression component and getting people interested without them having to necessarily overcome preconceived notions or hurdles around code. The other thing that came up was, and Seth, I hope you don't mind me sharing this, is this idea of Seth was talking about connecting it to the Wild Robot book. And I believe he's got it was a 10-day experience coming up around that narrative. And maybe making this one part of it. So yeah, Seth, please share from your own perspective.
Yeah, so I'm doing a lot of different kinds of activities related to science based on that book, partially because that movie's coming out in September too, which looks really good. But there's a whole big concept in the book of the robot becoming more human and what it means to be human. But they discover that the robot has a button on the back of her neck, and there's chapters devoted to like what's going to happen if we press this button. So I thought it'd be interesting to have a picture from the book because it is illustrated too, and have the button very obvious and like have the robot do different things based on the button and change it with the kids based on like a presentation with the kids and show them what coding can do and say like, do you want the robot to jump? Do you want the robot to go off the screen, turn different colors, whatever have you? But
yeah, thank you so much for sharing that. I wanted to surface that because I mean, I'm sure that we all have our own ways of wanting to interact with this book. And I do hope that through this network and through Library Makers, we can learn from each other and maybe support each other. And I just want to put it out there that if there's ever any projects that you are doing that you want to brainstorm or just share with us because they worked really well or maybe didn't work as well, please do feel free to do that with us.
I would say, can I just say with the Wild Robot, I mean, that series that as going into chapter books, I mean, that's widely used and widely loved. That's a really nice, I didn't realize it had the button connection. That's very cool. Yeah, I really
It's
like
actually like it's a 3-part series, and
Yeah.
that button concept comes up in all 3 books, actually. So it's like a recurring theme. And yeah, it's just like ripe with concepts and things you could do with science in that book. You just have to have time to read the entire book, which is why I'm spacing it over the entire summer.
Yeah, that's really great. I also think having kids write and read, write and draw things. I went into a 2nd, 3rd grade class that was working on the book and drawing out scenes, and seeing drawings brought into Octostudio, you know, and having your creation then code and do something is pretty fun.
I am making that into like a it's my like strategic goal plan for this year for myself at my library. So I'm making it accessible, like all the materials are going to be there. So if anybody here wants like a copy of everything when I'm done, you can just get a hold of me. And I don't know how you would do that, but I can give it to you.
Via Library Makers, that's the platform that we're all in now. So you can send me a private message on there, or you can put it in the news feed for everybody to see.
Okay. I'll put my library email too in the chat.
That'd be great.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
How far away is your library? I didn't see your introduction.
I am at Dayton Metro Libraries, Southern Ohio. So I'm pretty far away from you guys. Wish I was closer.
But talking about the Library Makers platform, the other thing that did come up was some resources like the conductive tape that you might have seen in some of those examples. So what I'm going to do after this is just collect a few of the things that you might have seen in those examples, and we'll share that on the Library Makers platform, which hopefully will, you know, act as a resource for all of us. And obviously, you know, as Seth just modeled, like if anything else comes up, please feel free to use that platform.
Yeah, my recommendation is to designate a hashtag for this, because then it gets really easy to find all the posts related to it. So Storytime Tinkering, if that wants to be the hashtag, then we'll just all use that.
Perfect.
Yep, that's the one we're going to go with. Yeah. All right. Steph, Michael, did you have anything else you wanted to add before we close out?
And the last thing is just to say, so thank you all for joining today. As we said before, it really is an experiment, and it'll be made better and more interesting by seeing what you actually try out. So please do share questions, ideas on Library Makers. We all are going to really be visiting and paying attention. And so we're so curious to see, like, how would you tinker with this book? What does it spark for you? What do you try out with learners? And then we'll come back together on April 26th, and we'll have a chance to hear, what did you try? What are you interested in next? And then we'll also introduce a new book to all tinker with then. But mostly I just want to say thank you for joining today.
Oh yeah, go ahead, Michael.
No, just
you had
echoing
something?
that.
Okay.
Likewise, it was all I
All right, well, a few things before we close out. Thank you to the Tinkering Studio for leading us today. It was really fun and creative. And thank you to everyone else for attending this kickoff. It's really exciting to be part of this book club. All right, I'm going to share my screen. So again, our next session is April 26th. That is posted on the events tab, the events page in our Library Makers platform. We also have our workshop number 3 posted as well. So these sessions do build on each other. But if you can't make it, we are recording the session, so you can always view it at a later time. And we will be, continuing the discussion in between the sessions on the platform. So feel free to, post on the community newsfeed and chat. And then, of course, tag your posts with Storytime Tinkering so that everything is all together and organized. For librarians, we like that. And then finally, I did post in the chat a brief survey. If you could take that, we would love to hear what you think and what other events you would be interested in the future. So that would really help us out.
And maybe the very last thing I'll ask is, Karen, did you have a chance to add the prompt in the chat that we were wondering about for people about book-based tinkering?
Oh, yes. Let's see. Is my screen still shared?
Yep.
Okay, cool. Yes, here's a prompt for us all to like get the conversation rolling. So feel free to respond to it. How could you see trying book-based tinkering in your community and or in your context and community? What would you want to try?
So in addition to the survey, we would love to just kick off the conversation by hearing your thoughts on that question too.
Yeah, that one I would just echo is really important because we'd like to use it in how we think about the next session. We've got a rough plan for what we'd like to do, but we would really like to respond to your input as well.
Okay. Well, with that, thank you so much for coming. We're very excited to see what you do between now and the next session, and we will see you then. Thanks,
Thank
everyone.
you so much.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye, thanks.